This CPU and GPU combo is S tier in terms of bang for buck, and this will satisfy the needs of most gamers right now. But what happens when you spend absolutely nothing on your CPU cooler and just slap your box cooler on it? I mean, it comes with the CPU, so why not give it a try, right? Welcome to Machines and More. We begin our foray into air cooling the T1 V2, and before getting into fancy customized aftermarket solutions, I wanted to show you what you can expect in a small sandwich style case and with a box cooler. Where exhausting case fans, they can really help out both your air-cooled GPU and your top-down low-profile air cooler. And this works because your makeup air is going to feed directly into both side panels. Now, I think the FormD, being such a nice case, deserves a better cooler than your box cooler. But hey, maybe you already exceeded your budget getting this case, getting the components, and you're just waiting to upgrade it, right? So it's a good exercise to get a baseline with a basic solution. And I think that you'll see with two good case fans, this can work out acceptably in the interim. All right, so first the liquid cooler came off. I swapped the CPU. This one is the long-awaited Ryzen 5 5600, which, just like the 3600 from Zen 2, is such a good value here. You're functionally getting close enough to the 5600X. You save a lot of cash, actually, and now all of a sudden it feels like nobody wants to buy a GPU, right? So you can actually get something like this 3070 Founders Edition at MSRP with a reasonable amount of effort. So these two components are pretty well matched for each other, and actually quite reasonable for even a sub 10 liter case like this T1 V2. In your GPU limited scenario, which I think most of you will be in, you've got an efficient CPU that doesn't generate too much heat. It runs quite well, and in scenarios where the game is less than optimized or single core heavy, this one is going to get pretty close to what its higher end AMD brethren will deliver, but it's only what, 180 bucks right now, so what a steal. And it comes with a cooler. You've got good mini-itx board selection, tried and true options over the last few years. So there's quite a lot of things going in this favor if you're trying to build a gaming build right now. The spec max turbo boost is 4.4 gigahertz. You can do a little bit better than that usually, and for an all-core boost, the max you can expect without tweaking is somewhere around 4.3 gigahertz. I set this one up in the T1 V2 with the Wraith Stealth box cooler. Note that I did not change the divider position in this case versus the AIO testing setup. You could do that, but then I'd have to push the cart out even more to get it to the outside, the side panel. And your power supply, then I have to take off those standoffs, and I can't offset that outwards anymore. So essentially the only benefit here would be to get the CPU cooler closer to the side panel, which it's really not a huge deal here since the ambient case temperature, it's not going to be very severe, and you've already got the case fans helping intake air from the side panel. So I think just if you want to leave it like that, that's fine too. I also popped in two Fantex T30. Now, note, these are not mandatory. I know these are quite higher end and more expensive fans, but in terms of the form, they are a good fit for this case because the mounting bars, they basically put them at the edge, closer to the outer panel. Not quite at the edge, but pretty close. And we have them in an exhausting position at the top. Last, I did take the opportunity to show you what the inset mounted power plug looks like. Now, it's a little tricky to screw it in from the inside out because of the 90-degree bend there, but it's doable with some patience. Okay, so the first thing I tested, it was just to get an idea of the all-core clocks that you can get with the cooler fan at full throttle. I set up PBO with a -15 curve optimizer offset. Just a quick and dirty tweak there. What that's going to do is going to allow the boost algorithm to dynamically undervolt the CPU a little bit. With the T30s running a relatively high 1500 RPM and your cooler fan at 2700 RPM, boost clocks end up around 4225 megahertz, so it's lower than what the chip is capable of, but we're topping out around 90 degrees, right? So that's why the algorithm limits it. With the cooler fan at 70% or 1900 RPM, the logged boost clocks drop to 4150 megahertz in the long run, and the same blender render finished about 10 seconds slower. So yeah, there is a measurable impact from dialing back that CPU cooler fan. Now, whether or not that matters, up to you, because it's noisier at 100%, a lot actually. interesting data point here just to test the importance of the case fans. If you were to keep the cooler fan at that same 1900 RPM, but you up your case fans to something higher, say like 1750 RPM, the boosts, they do get a bit better. Graphically speaking, clearly they're not as good as the 100% on the CPU cooler, but at least from a performance standpoint, in this case, you can get pretty close to the performance of maxing out the CPU's cooler fan for just a 10% increment in the case fan. So all that is to say, in the sandwich style case here, these case fans are pretty critical. So with that, I'd say if you're looking to do regular CPU based rendering or any type of CPU heavy video editing, audio editing, this stock cooler, it can work, but you will have to expect higher case or cooler fan speeds, and even then you're still giving up some performance. So I think for those of you that are, if that's your use case, then you can do a lot better with an aftermarket cooler. So we'll see just how much better when I put the 5600 through its paces in this case. But if you're gaming with this one, it's actually pretty decent. So I've kept the case fans at the same 1500 RPM. They're actually not terribly noisy at that level. 50% on the GPU fans, and same as the testing we did previously in the flow through cooler video, and the CPU cooler fan limited to your same 1900 RPM, we are hitting 4.55 gigahertz steady. So keep in mind, this is turbo on a single core, so naturally it's going to be higher than the boost clocks that we just looked at in the all core scenario. But this is pretty impressive given that it's the stock cooler. Again, I did tweak it a little bit with a -15 offset, but yeah, it's not too bad. Kind of, more or less out of the box with a box cooler kind of thing. And the good thing about not having a rad and all that airflow, extra airflow from the case fans, is that your GPU temps are even improved from the previous test with the AIO. Those temps came in on the higher end of 73. So here we're seeing, even more improvement. It's further improved almost 2 degrees. Obviously, I think most of you aren't going to be dropping $60 on a pair of case fans and sticking with the box cooler, especially not if you're buying this case. But if you are kind of strapped for cash, I think 2 Arctic P12s, they would work quite nicely in here for a lot less cash. And then when you do upgrade the air cooler, there's still going to be a good match for that. So yeah, gaming with this CPU and box cooler in this sandwich style case, it's actually not a must upgrade scenario. If you're doing some heavy CPU workloads, then personally I would do it sooner than later, but stay tuned for some ideas coming up. I'll leave some links down below for the stuff we discussed. Please give a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.